Okay, I'm going to make one more of these, and it's this one, the fifth, uh, the fifth, the fifth one. I have to figure out how to orient to the computer. It's crazy. And it's this one, the fifth one, and after I make it, I'm going outside in the sun. Yeah. All right. So let's say that you've made it through the previous 4 videos that I've done so far, and you've been studying on your own. You kind of understand, all right, I get the idea of what astrology is about, this big mythological picture and formal logic structures and how to think and play with the world and how to understand the way other people think, why they do the things that they do, and how other people are in your life, blah, blah, blah. You're like introspecting on yourself and people and how yourself and people relate to each other, and it's this big ball. Yeah, so let's say that you've got all that going on, and then you kind of have looked up the planets, what they mean, is in terms of being facets of yourself, and then you've looked up the zodiac. You've seen that there's 12 signs. You've like noticed that there's like 4 elements, 3 different stages of the elements, and like you're starting to get to this point where you're like, all right, I could totally see these characters as if they were like soap opera characters, or like characters in my favorite video game, or in my favorite romance novel, or in whatever the hell, you know, like the newest awesomest TV cartoon. Whatever, I'm just making up stuff now. So, assuming that you kind of get those things, now I want to talk about putting them together. Let's talk about the planets, which are represented by these fingers, being in the zodiac signs, which are represented by the gaps in these fingers. See, like this. Yeah, you can tell I work with kids, huh? Okay, so that really brings you to, drum roll, doing your birth chart. So there's lots of free sites online. You can just type in Google free natal chart, Natal, or a free birth chart, right? And then thing is that you gotta know, well, you don't exactly have to, but it's pretty good to know not only what day, month, year you're born, but also where you're born and what time of day you're born. And that is because things rotate in the sky at different time frames with respect to Earth, of course. For example, the month, the moon, bleh, the moon, I guess now I know that those words are related, moon and month. The moon takes about a month to rotate all the way around the Earth. The sun, from the perspective of the Earth, takes a whole year to rotate around us. Really, it's us rotating around. But if we look out in the sky, if you think of ancient astrologers, that's what they saw. You know, so each of them has a different amount of time. What is Saturn? 28 to 30 years, 29 years that it takes to go all the way around. The sun takes 1 year, the moon takes 1 month. Now, within the day, we have 24 hours in a day. We have 12 zodiac signs. That kind of means that as we're moving through the day, there's different zodiac signs that are moving all around us. So when you think of astrology and astronomy and all of 3D space, you really got to think of how you are in relation to this big thing. So imagine you're outside on a starry, warm summer night, and you're just looking off in this direction that's ahead of you. Let's say it's east or whatever. You're watching all this stuff. If you sit there for a couple hours of time, eventually you'll watch this whole chunk of stars moving this way. And what you're effectually watching is different constellations as they're rising into the sky, right? Just as the sun rises into the sky, or we see the moon rise, and everything where I get to do this with my arms, this motion, okay? So every 2 hours, a different constellation, a different zodiac sign is rising. And it just so happens that that's one of the pretty cool things about your chart. So you got to know what time of day you're born. And so let's say you figure all this out and you go to a site like astro.com is one that I like because they have pretty charts. And you type in all your stuff and it gives you this picture. And here's mine. This is my picture. It's big, see? Now notice here, we've got a 360 circle. Guess what? It's like the Earth and how we see all the stars in space. All the colorful things on the outside. These are the zodiac signs. right? I'm going to trace a circle backwards with my fingers. Okay, so this big dark line here is the horizon. It's if I were to have gone outside, this is all the stuff that I can see up here, and this is where the Earth is covering up everything. So that's what all the planets look like, where those little caricature things are, right? Now, we talked about the planets, and we talked about the signs, and so now we can start to combine them. You can do this with your own chart. You can look at where your planets are in your zodiac signs. So, for example, I'm going to zoom in here. Check this out. My sun is in Leo. And you might not know that because you don't know these symbols, but you can look up all the symbols. A lot of times in the past, I've drawn little pictures of a legend for me to try to, like a legend of a map. And I try to, memorize what the symbols are. But I'm finally at a point where I kind of know. What it's showing me here is that the sun and this other shape at the top there, that's Venus. They're both in Leo. Okay? This next sign here for me, it's Mercury, and it just happens to be on the other side of that black line here. No, here. See, it's doing it backwards. So that means it's in the next sign, which is Virgo. I wanted to say Mercury because it's an M, but it's Virgo. And then my moon is in Virgo. That's this next sign here. Going around, I've got Pluto in Libra. I've got Saturn and Mars in Scorpio. I've got Uranus in Sagittarius, and I just barely have Neptune in Sagittarius, and then I have Jupiter in Capricorn. And then I've got some other stuff down there that we didn't talk about, which is Chiron in my North Node. But if you're able to do that, and even if you can't, there's a little legend right here that will tell you all of it. So then the next thing that you can do, which is what I've done, is you Google all of that shit. You just look up what it's like. But also, if you've been developing your own kind of intuitive sense or your own sort of logic structure about what each of these things is, then you can kind of think about how they go together. So for example, for me, the sun is in Leo. So my personality is in the archetype of Leo the lion. And just imagine all of the things in Deborah Silverman's video, which are sometimes true and sometimes a little bit not true about me with being Leo, right? But there's definitely, I think, to me, this wanting to be showy personality, even though there's other aspects of my chart that kind of stuff it down inside. That's one, quality of me. So you could say my moon is in Virgo, and so subconsciously I have this Virgo thing, and if you look at the qualities of Virgo, there's some, anxious worrying, like I said before, that it's like I'm doing this all the time. There is that going on. So imagine that I have taken these two things, the sun and the moon, and I'm combining them. And you can even actually look up some websites. You can just do a Google for that combo, your sun-moon combo. And it gives you this really cool sort of enmeshment of how these two traits go together. So there's how you are outwardly and then how you are kind of quietly. And so, for example, for me, outwardly, I'm hey, how you doing? What's going on? Yeah, da, da, da. But in the back of my mind, I'm oh, I don't know, I gotta organize that. I gotta tuck my shirt in, or what is he doing? So there's this weird, dichotomous thing where there's two different characters that are sort of in me, and they're having a conversation through me. That's a really funny thing to say, but I just saw this really great video. I'm going to find it and post a link to it below, where this girl, she's talking about racial issues, but she has a conversation with the different aspects of herself. And I can't remember, there might be 8 different characters, and they're all caricatures, and you can do the same thing with the planets in astrology. In fact, I really want to do that. It would be so cool to have a little show where I break myself down into my Leo sun, and then I also have another part of me that's the Virgo moon, or all of these other aspects of myself, and they're all just having this conversation. One's hey, let's do this, and the other's well, I don't know about that, and it's well, you should have done this thing last night, why weren't you? Yeah, but I just want to do everything, man, come on, we're all of that, which is what makes us such dynamic, complex, interesting, awesome characters, Life is infinitely rich if you feel like it is. I mean, maybe not everybody thinks it is, but it can be, and it's like so fun to me to like see all of that. So that's really like the biggest starting point with all of this. Once you get to a point where you start to understand what the planets are like in the signs, that's when you start to get a gist of astrology. And the big way to do it is, well, for me, this is the way I've done it. Everyone has their own way, but having a mix of sort of studying it as a concept, or maybe but tying it in as well to your own experiences. Certainly, like you see this as a character. I would think, how is this a character? What kind of story? Like there's all this astrology stuff online, for example, where you can do Harry Potter astrology, and they'll tell you for each different zodiac sign what character in the story is that archetype. So Harry Potter's a Leo, and he actually happens to have the same birthday as me. So, yeah, right, like Harry Potter would do that. So you can see like in movies, or you can think about, you could get to know your friends' sun signs and start to not like pigeonhole them in a box, but just, I don't know, I like to think like, how could I see this archetype or this character being expressed in this person? I mean, I like to definitely keep a very curious and open, somewhat objective approach to it. That way it's not being used to criticize, because certainly everyone gets to do everything their own way and make their own choices and all that stuff. And I do truly believe that. I just think sometimes I'm silly with things that I think, that little mom voice in me. So yeah, I'm just looking at my chart. There's like so much more. We can do it another time. Again, it takes lots of studying, but it's really cool. It's really fun. Rawr, you know?